Hey guys, we're back again. We often do videos about the design of the kitchens and remodels that we do, but we don't really talk too much about the behind the scenes stuff that goes into a project like this. Stuff that you don't get to see, but stuff that really does affect the overall life of a project. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we did specifically on this job. Behind the scenes, stuff that you can't see, but stuff that's all very, very necessary to do. Up first, I'm going to start with the ceiling. This house was built, I think, in the late 60s. Was it the late 60s?
71.
71. All right, so I was sort of close. When they framed this ceiling, this is was a cathedral ceiling, so it came to a hard point at the very top. And what we did was we noticed when we demoed out the ceiling, we noticed that as it came to a hard point in the ceiling, there were no collar ties or rafter ties that tied everything together. Because when you get a hard peak like that and you get a load on the roof, like snow load or a different weight on the roof, it presses down, and that pressure going down can actually bow out the walls in these directions. So you need a tie that runs across in between those rafters. And what that tie does is it prevents those rafters from moving outward. So we noticed that there was no rafter tie up at the peak, which was a concern for us because we were going to be doing this sheetrock ceiling. At the peak, originally, they had a beam that ran across, like these two beams. But we had decided that the two beams were going to look a little bit better than three in this room. So what we did was we came up with a plan, and we consulted our engineer, and we installed rafter ties above that flat section of ceiling that you see up there. And those ties should help a little bit in that stress from the roof and the different loads that the roof experiences, and just the movement from the seasons. So what we do is we put those rafter ties in, and then we thought, you know, if we had a hard peak up there, we still need a flat area to hang the chandelier. So we decided that we were going to make a small flat section that you guys can see there at the top. Instead of doing that in sheetrock, that board is actually a wood board. It's a solid wood board that runs the length of the room. And we painted it the ceiling color, and we rolled it just like we would roll a ceiling so it would blend in. So you never know that's actually not sheetrock. What that allowed us to do is it allowed us to caulk on both sides of that to the ceiling, so that if this house does move a little bit, what will happen is the caulk we use is an expandable caulk. It should move with the movement of the ceiling, but if it does break, it's a simple fix as opposed to the fix that would have to happen if it was sheetrock. So you just get up there on a ladder and you'd re-caulk it and repaint it, and you'd be all set. So that was a little bit about the ceiling with what we did, just to make sure that when we sheetrocked it and we didn't have a third beam up there, that our job would look good for an extended period of time, and the homeowner wouldn't have to worry about, you know, any major issues happening. Whereas, you know, if we did sheetrock it and didn't put those rafter ties in, it might look good for, you know, a little while until we get, you know, a foot or two of snow and that's sitting on the roof, and then the weather warms up and things start to shift and move. So we always try to look into the future a little bit, just to think about exactly what's, you know, how the house is going to act and what's going to happen. So another thing I want to talk to you about was this floor. When this house was built, the subfloor was actually a 1/2-inch subfloor. And unfortunately on this job, we couldn't replace the entire subfloor of the whole house. It's just not possible. And when the kitchen floor came up, we couldn't do a thicker subfloor in here because then it wouldn't be at the same plane as the rest of the first floor. So what we did was we actually walked through, found all the weak spots in the floor, and braced everything from the basement. So we did a full brace of the floor from the basement so that we would have no issues with this floor. So that was just another thing that we try to do, just to kind of stay ahead of everything. Did you have anything you wanted to add? Oh, in the walls behind this hood, they send anytime you mount anything into the walls, they typically send anchors and mollies that you can, in toggle bolts and things that you can just kind of go through the sheetrock into a void, into a cavity, and install it. But, since everything was open, we actually install wood blocking in the wall so that it has something really solid to be mounted into. So, like I said, a lot of what we do is behind the scenes. This stuff looks nice, but we want to make sure it looks nice for a long period of time. So putting in that effort to do the stuff that's behind the scenes really does help. You want to add anything?
Yeah, this floor, I don't know if you went over, but this floor was nailed down twice. The subfloor was nailed down twice.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't. No, go ahead.
So this subfloor was nailed down twice with ring shank nails to take away any potential squeaks and current squeaks. And then the actual flooring was laid in the appropriate manner where you've got good distance between each seam at the butt end of the red oak
So
flooring.
here's an example here. We have a seam here, and then we have a seam over there. If you go into this room, you'll see that there's a couple seams that are too close. We've got, that's too close. We've got 3 right here, so that creates a weak spot. But, we didn't replace this floor, so we couldn't do any of that correction or nailing. Anything else?
No, that's it to add with the floor.
Do you want to talk about the insulation? What we did with the insulation plan here?
With the insulation, we've got a cantilevered soffit off the back of the house, so that got stuffed with insulation, full rafter, and joist thickness or depth. When this window was framed out, we saved the old header of the large sliding door that was there originally, so we reused that header. And in addition, on the back side of this cathedral ceiling, we used a closed cell spray foam insulation that got sprayed up to the roof sheathing, the entire depth of the 2x6 joists and rafters, because that would allow us the maximum R value for insulating. And then on the front half, we used fiberglass batt insulation because there wasn't a backer to spray to. This roof line actually or ceiling is actually not the actual roof line of the house. Roof line of the house actually goes out a little further and goes up higher. So there was no sheathing to spray foam insulation to. And then all of these panels were caulked to block any air from seeping into the room as well.
Yeah, so to jump off of what Adam's saying is where that flat molding was installed, we installed all of that flat molding that was there. There was a quarter round that was there before. The flat kind of goes with the style of this room. Underneath that, in those joints in between the boards, all of those were caulked to prevent air from flowing into the room. In addition to that, one of the things that we did, once the panels were all sanded down, they got primed. After the primer, all the imperfections were filled with a lightweight spackling compound, and then we caulked all of the seams of those boards. But in addition, caulking and filling is fine, but we want to limit the movement of those boards, and they were very loose. So we actually went through and fastened every one of those boards in place to limit the movement. They're still going to move because wood moves. It's just what happens with the change in temperature and humidity in a house. But we want to limit that so that the caulking and the hole filling, we don't have an issue with that, once it's painted. So those are just a few of the things that we did behind the scenes here. So, oh yeah,
this wall here actually came out a little bit further, and we cut this back because this was a laundry pantry area. So this wall got cut back a little bit. And we consulted with our engineer. He drew up some plans, ran some calculations, and what we did was we added additional framing in the ceiling to carry any load that might be running this span. We also did some additional framing in the ceiling by the shelves because the second floor bathroom is above that area, and the joists were cut and headed off, and just didn't provide the appropriate support necessary for the second floor, so additional work needed to be done in that ceiling.
And that was right directly under the tub, so that space gets a lot of weight if it's full, so we wanted to make sure we beef that up quite a bit.
The other thing that we make sure when we do all of our kitchens is that lights are laid out in a certain way
Right.
with purpose. And all of our lights are in a row where they can be and centered over cabinets. And that's one of the small details that we think goes a long way in this process of lining lights up to land centered on cabinets or on thirds of the cabinet. So they're all laid out with purpose. And we work with our electrician. We work hand in hand to make sure that that detail is right on. And in this kitchen, it's very clear that you can see these lights do land centered on cabinets and all in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, we wanted to let you guys, a lot of times we hear, sometimes people will say, ask how long projects take, and either people say, oh, that was quick, or that was long, but there is so much that goes. It's not as simple as just taking out cabinets and sanding the floor down. There's a lot of back thought and planning that goes into doing something, like this. We try to put that kind of thought and planning and preparation into all of the remodels we do, whether it be a small half bath powder room, or a bathroom, or a kitchen remodel that's 10 by 10, or a kitchen remodel that's of this scale. So it's really important, that you find a contractor who's going to put that thought in. And we try to tell all of our clients that when we're in the bidding process about the steps and the process and things that we can encounter and things to expect. And along the way too, it's important to communicate with clients and make sure that they know what to expect in the different phases of a project. So hope you guys like this. Go ahead.
And one other small thing to piggyback on what Matt is saying is we also make sure that the switches and outlets, when they're installed on a wall, do not encroach upon the trim of a door or
Correct.
window.
Right.
And the other nitpicky aspect of something we do, but it lines everything up real nice, is that when outlets and outlet plates and switch plates are attached to a wall, we make sure that all of the screws are vertical. And that's just one other thing that we go through and make sure everything is aligned, and outlets and switches are level as well.
And solid, so when you push them in, they don't move and don't slide. So, yeah, hope you guys like it. If you have any questions, feel free to message us or comment on the video, and we'd be happy to answer anything that you guys need clarification on.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.